Hey everyone, it's Dr. Sally here. This is Headspace for the Workplace. It's a podcast where we work hard to cultivate vibrant and psychologically safe and healthy workplaces. And every episode, we are joined by someone with a very big brain. And again, that's the case today with my dear, dear, dear friend, Sarah Gaer. And we are going to be talking about something that's really near and dear to both of our hearts, which is this concept of soul exhaustion and soul care. It was, I think, almost a decade ago, it was at least 8 years ago, that Sarah came to me and said, I think there's something connected to people's well-being that's around soul. And I was like, tell me more. And she's like, well, how do you think about soul? And she wrote a blog back in 2019 around talking about the soul and soul exhaustion. And then we did a podcast during COVID, where we were both pretty soul exhausted. And then probably my favorite memory on this journey with her is when we were in Copenhagen and she was interviewing these, really highfalutin suicidologists from all around the world about their thoughts on the soul. And it was just fascinating to see the common ground on this. So we're so excited to announce that her and Cassie Kelly's book, Soul Exhaustion and Soul Care Workbook, has just launched this week. And y'all got to check it out. But in today's podcast, we are going to focus on soul care in the workplace. Sarah, welcome to the show and tell us about the two things that people are going to learn today.
Sally, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. Two concepts that are both parts of soul care. The first one is time as your most valuable currency. We'll tell you more about that. And that every boundary you set is a piece of yourself that you're taking back. So really excited to talk about those.
Yes, I need to work on both of those, as you know. So I am really excited to share again with the world this incredible work that you've been doing and a journey that you have now built a community around and is now sharing all of these tools and appraisals with the world so they all can benefit from all of this deep thinking and deep work. And it's been very exciting to see it come out. So tell everyone who doesn't know you a little bit more about you and about your pathway to this moment and your why. Why do you care about this?
Yeah, I've been in the field a long time. I've got, some of those credentials and letters and certifications and all those things, and they're important and I'm proud of them. But the truth behind my why is my own lived experience as a young person, which led to my having a best friend with lots of lived experience and ultimately who I lost to suicide. And so everything I do is somehow connected to that experience of losing her and the two friends I lost prior to her. And, Sally, you know this better than anybody. I really got frustrated with the emphasis on pathology and diagnosis and medication. And I just felt like there's more to us than that. And, sometimes we make sense. And so I started the journey as you outlined, and I thought I was destroying my career. And I was sort of, as you remember, at peace with that idea. And it turns out I was launching my career in a totally different direction that I really, really love.
Yeah. And I know those interviews in Copenhagen really drove it home for me because it didn't matter if they were from Japan or, Eastern Europe or whatever. Like everybody kind of said the same thing when it came to what is the soul? What are your ideas about the soul? And what do you think about soul exhaustion? And when it came to soul exhaustion, the language that they were using was really about suicidal despair. It was phenomenally wow moment for me to kind of watch you go through that. All right. Well, is there something curious about you that people find surprising?
Yeah. So I don't find this surprising, and I'm probably going to date myself, but I drive a little itty bitty bright red baby race car. And I call it a race car. It's not really a race, but that's what I call it. And what surprises people is that it is a manual transmission.
Yes.
That surprises people.
Yeah, no, it's your hot chick car, and she's got a name. And what's her name?
Her name's Susie.
Yes, I love zipping around in that car with you. I feel so young. All right, let's go do the thing. Let's talk about your first tip. Time is your most valuable currency. Talk about this in the context of work and soul exhaustion and soul care.
Yeah, we live in a culture that demands us to work. And actually, I was just having a conversation this morning about how technology, while in some ways it's fantastic, right? But in other ways, it's actually changed that demand for people. that, once upon a time, if you called me and I wasn't home, it went to voicemail and I found out about it 8 hours later. Now there's this demand on us that we're available all the time for things. And oftentimes the workplace is one of the things making that demand on people. An expectation, I know you're on paternity leave, but we have a problem, so you should come back. Um, and so all of this started off really through my own lived experience. And this concept was born specifically out of walking with my dad through his last year of life. And I realized something from that process, that at the end of the day, you can't take the truck with you, you can't take the title with you or the promotion with you, right? That so many of the things that our society values are the things you can't actually take with you. And so I started doing this exercise with people where I asked them to think about what are the top 5 things in life that matter the most to you, and I give them a minute to think about it, make your list. And then I ask them to think about what are the top 5 ways you spend your time,
Mm-hmm.
and include doom scrolling on Facebook, watching Netflix, right? And what people found was a vast discrepancy between the things that matter the most to them and the ways that they're using their time. So now you can't ever make it exactly balanced out. And by the way, we do have a worksheet on this that is available to the public if anybody wants to go through it themselves. You're never going to balance it out completely because we all have to work too much. But the idea is to really start to think about budgeting your time the way you do your money.
Mm-hmm.
Before you go make a big purchase, you think about if you can afford to do that purchase or not,
Right.
right? And so really thinking about time as our most valuable currency.
Excellent. I love it. And, I also think about this from a standpoint for workplaces that are trying to attract and retain emerging talent, because our Gen Z workforce, our emerging leaders, they came of age during COVID. They know that life is precious and short, and they are not going to work themselves to death, or they're going to try really hard not to, and have a life outside of that. And so you've got, Gen Xers who are like, oh, work, 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 and facing retirement in some ways. And then you've got the Gen Zers who are like, yeah, no, I'm much more than just my work title. So this is another really important piece of how do you not, work your people to death. All right, let's do the second one. Every boundary you set is a piece of yourself you take back.
Yeah, I mean, those two things are linked together,
Yeah.
right? When you start to think about time as your most valuable currency, you have to reconsider the boundaries you have. So for those of us who, always answer the phone, especially if it's certain people calling, right? Like there's
Hmm.
no time that I'm not going to answer that call. Not now, though. I am actually getting really obnoxiously good at setting these boundaries. I'm not sure everybody's going to appreciate the work I'm doing. But also emails. I learned during, back to COVID, right? I was working from home doing the FEMA funded crisis counseling program, responding to the pandemic. And what that meant is I was walking by my office, and inevitably, every time I would walk by it, and it didn't matter if it was 6 o'clock in the morning before my coffee or 8 o'clock at night when I should be laying on the couch with my family, every time I walked by my computer, I would go check my email. And I finally said to myself, because I was burning myself out, close the office door. If the office door is closed, you are not checking that email.
Hmm.
Right. And how many times we should have been present for really important things. We should have been present for a birthday party. We should have been present for, a celebration. And instead, we're worried about what's happening on our phone, oftentimes tied to work. And the other thing is, I just want to point out, if I have to sell anybody on this, when you're exhausted and you're forcing yourself to keep doing things, even though you really don't have the bandwidth anymore, you're a lot more likely to not do it well. So, maybe this is just how I convinced myself of setting these boundaries, but it wasn't just a win for my own well-being. I think my quality of work was better because, I had set that boundary.
Yeah, exactly. And it just dawns on me too that maybe we could just close this piece out with a little bit deeper dive on on what soul is and soul care and soul exhaustion, as well as how it differentiates from things like stress and burnout and self-care. Can you just talk a little bit about this to kind of bring this whole idea home for everybody?
Yeah, Sally, that's the research that I started. It was sort of born in Copenhagen. You suggested that I walk around. I thought it was a ridiculous suggestion. But I love a ridiculous adventure, so I decided to do it. Much to my amazement, out of all the researchers that I asked what they thought the soul was, only one of them looked at me and said, "I'm a scientist. There's no such thing." Every single person, other than that one, started to explain to me what they thought the soul was. And the most consistent by far, and you and I found this again in our survey data, answer is that it's the deepest part of who I am. So for some people, that ties into sort of the religious spiritual idea of the soul, but no matter what the baseline is, it's the deeper part of who I am. And so it's really thinking about, you can have the stress, you can have all those things going on. Is it changing your connection to yourself? Is it changing who you are? Now, soul exhaustion can happen on a spectrum like any other mental health condition. Many of us have spent years having soul exhaustion at like a 2 or a 3 or a 4. When you made that reference sort of around the relationship to suicidal despair, I'm going to tell you, you're looking at soul exhaustion at a 9, 8, 9, and 10.
Right.
At the point somebody's feeling that sort of depth of it. But it's really feeling disconnected from who you really are.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I keep tying it back to our work over a decade ago, 15 years ago, with the young students and the fire within. I like to think of it as like the spark of who you are that goes with you throughout your life. It's like the essence and the spark and your real true self. And when that light gets diminished by whatever, by trauma, by stressful, oppressive situations in the world, in your job, in your family, in your neighborhood, like that light gets diminished. And how do we bring that light back? So I just love this concept. I think it takes everything to a deeper level versus, just take a bubble bath or get your nails done or whatever, do some deep breathing. It really looks at what do you need to fuel the essence of who you are. And I think it's just beautiful, Sarah. And I'm so excited for you and your amazing team that brought this book to life because I think it's going to help so many people. So congratulations. So I'm going to go back and do a quick recap. I'm coming back to you for final thoughts. So if you're just joining in or just rejoining, I'm here with Sarah Gaer, and we are talking about soul care and soul care as directly applied to your work life and your well-being. And we're talking about the importance of boundaries around work in our workaholic culture that I know we're one of the most stressed out nations in the world, and we have all the health impacts to show it. We're dying younger and younger. And part of that is because the essence of who we are is diminished by how much we're pouring into work. Sarah, what's the final thing you want to make sure that people do not miss?
If your work is costing you your soul, that's not sustainable.
Not sustainable from your work life, but also not sustainable for your life. Really important point. Sarah, this is amazing. If people want to check out the workbook, if they want to learn more about you, what are the best ways they should learn more? How can they get a hold of you?
Yep. So we have a website that's specific to soul exhaustion and soul care. That's soulexhaustion.care. Yes, we were very excited to get that. Who knew there was a .care, but we found it and we were thrilled. And if they want to learn more about me and all my other things that I do, they can find out more at sarahgaer.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for championing this work. Thank you for your friendship and business partnership and all the things you're doing to help everybody out there. It is always a blessing to be with you. And thank you to the team behind the scenes making this come into everybody's eyes and ears. That's Chase and Stacy and Dave and Elias and many others. And Neil, of course, give a shout out to Neil. And all Linda listeners who've made this a priority in your day. So in closing, working minds work well together. There's lots we can learn from each other to improve the well-being of our workplaces. Until we meet again, take care.